My sister attempted to traffic me to her man, living in my apartment completely rent-free, then named me as her baby's emergency contact directly from a shelter. Therefore, I severed all ties, uttering not a word. This happened 9 months prior. She was recently sentenced as his accomplice as her son's adoptive parents celebrated his earliest steps, absent her. Can you imagine being betrayed by your own sister? Not just a little family squabble, but a deep, chilling betrayal that involved trying to hand you over to a creepy predator, all for a sick fantasy? Because that's exactly what my half-sister Karen did to me. And honestly, it's only the beginning of this wild, exhausting, and ultimately freeing story. I moved to the US almost 7 years ago, building a life from the ground up. My dad's 2 other daughters, my half-sisters, followed a couple of years later. Karen, the eldest, arrived on a student visa. And, because I was finally earning a good salary, I offered for her to move in with me. It seemed like the right thing to do, a way to help family. The deal was simple. I'd cover all the bills, all the food. Karen was supposed to get a job at the university. Student visas have rules, you know, and that would be her spending money. All I asked in return? Help with a few minor chores. I had a dog and a cat, and I specifically told her she had 0 responsibility for them while she juggled school and work. No biggie, right? Apparently, that wasn't enough. While at university, Karen met Ken. I actually knew Ken from my own university days. He was weird. Like, unsettlingly weird. But Karen? She was head over heels for him. I tried to warn her. I told her Ken had a really bad reputation on campus, that he was trouble. But she just brushed me off. I'm a big girl, she'd say. So, I had to let it go, with one ironclad condition: Ken was never allowed in my home. Simple. Or so I thought. Then 2020 hit. My hours at work were brutally cut. Karen's school paused, and poof, her campus job disappeared. Suddenly, we were both struggling. We had to move into a smaller, cheaper apartment. I took on a second job and started freelancing on the side. My personal life? It evaporated. I was dating someone, but he was just as swamped with work and bills, so we barely saw each other. It was during this chaotic time that Karen and Ken apparently got even closer. And he started showing up at the apartment. Karen wasn't on my lease, but my landlord was incredibly understanding, probably because I was always on time with rent. What wasn't understanding was Ken's behavior. He started making these unbelievably inappropriate comments about me. I'm not a beauty queen, but I guess I have a unique look, exotic, as Ken put it. I'm mixed race from the Caribbean, a little bit of everything, and it just shows. Ken would go out of his way to make these comments, and he was just so invasive. I found myself hiding in my room when he was around, or grabbing my pets and faking a walk just to get away from him. The worst part? Karen kept pushing for me to spend time alone with him. It'll be good for you to bond with your future brother-in-law, she'd say, as if they hadn't been dating for only 7 months and he hadn't made my skin crawl. Whatever. I didn't care for it. I found every excuse in the book to avoid him. By November 2020, a small miracle happened. I landed a better position at my main career job, which meant I could finally ditch that awful second job and reclaim some me time. I started reconnecting with old friends, trying to rebuild my life. One night, a friend pulled me aside, looking genuinely concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. I was confused. Why wouldn't I be? He looked uncomfortable, then told me Ken had been going around saying he was very close to getting me into bed. My blood ran cold. Me? With him? I was so disgusted, so livid, I said, very loudly, probably for everyone to hear, that I'd rather be hit by a train than do anything with Ken. And, because we live in a small city, once that cat was out of the bag, it raced. People started coming out of the woodwork, sending me text messages, sharing their own creepy stories about Ken, and revealing how long this had been going on. That was it. I marched straight home. I demanded an explanation. They didn't even try to deny it. Ken, with that sickening smirk, even said Karen had told him it was fine, and that I was doing them a solid as her sister because he had this fantasy he wanted to fulfill. My jaw dropped. The audacity. You are both absolutely disgusting. I spat. I looked at Ken. You need to get out of my apartment right now, or I'm calling the cops. He left, spewing insults my way, but he left. Then Karen turned to me, her face annoyingly blank. She started telling me she didn't see the problem because my partner and I were on a break. We were not. We were just both swamped with work. I stared at her, rage simmering. I am not property for you to sell around. I yelled, my voice shaking. You have 2 weeks. Get out. Find your own place. I was done. Absolutely, irrevocably done. I called all my relatives, sent them copies of the horrific text messages I'd been given. The phone lines were buzzing with outrage. No one in our family wanted anything to do with Karen after that. She moved in with Ken a few days later, which, in hindsight, was exactly where she belonged. It took some effort, some lawyer visits, but I was able to get a restraining order against Ken. Couldn't get one for Karen, which was frustrating. But they disappeared from my radar for a while. Any time our paths accidentally crossed, a simple hand on my phone, ready to dial 911, was enough to make them scurry away. And then, today happened. I swear, I almost burst out laughing. My younger half-sister, Mary, the only one who had kept tabs on Karen, sisters and all, messaged me. Hey, she wrote, Karen just called me. She's pregnant. And Ken kicked her out. I just stared at my phone screen for a good 5 minutes. Then, with an almost surgical precision, I typed back, oh. That's sad. Mary knew. She supported me completely. She knew I had no intention of helping Karen. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was Karen, calling from Mary's phone. She poured her heart out, begging me for help. She missed her little sister, she said, had nowhere else to go. She even had the gall to mention my family health insurance, how I could do something like that for her pregnancy medical bills. This baby was a blessing, she cried, and I should want to help raise it. Meaning, of course, I pay for everything. I listened. For a good 5 to 7 minutes, I just let her ramble, let her pour out every self-pitying, manipulative word. And then, when she finally took a breath, I simply said, nope, and hung up. She tried calling again and again, but I ignored it. Eventually, the calls stopped, and Mary texted me, apologizing for the spamming, explaining Karen had left her phone on the counter. Most of my family, even Karen's own mother, agreed with my decision. The only one who disapproved? Karen's aunt. She spent most of the day harassing me. She only stopped when I delivered a very clear message, one more text, and I'm showing them all to my stepfather. He's your landlord. That shut her up real quick. I feel bad for the baby, to a point, I really do. But all I could think was, this is not my circus, and these are not my monkeys. The apartment felt too quiet after I ended that call. I walked to the kitchen, my hands shaking slightly, and poured myself a glass of water. My dog followed me, tail wagging, completely oblivious to the emotional earthquake I'd just endured. I scratched behind his ears, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Karen's aunt. I didn't even read it. I just blocked her number. The relief was immediate. I'd given her fair warning. I wasn't bluffing about my stepfather. He'd been nothing but supportive when I'd told him about Ken, even offering to help with the restraining order paperwork. I sat down at my dining table, opened my laptop. Work emails had piled up. As I started typing, my mind kept drifting back to those months Karen lived with me. The red flags had been there from the beginning, glaring and obvious, but I'd ignored them out of some misguided sense of family duty. The first sign should have been when she complained about feeding the cat while I worked my second job. It was literally opening a can and putting it in a bowl, but she acted like I'd asked her to perform surgery. Then came the dishes, piling up whenever I wasn't home to wash them immediately. The trash that somehow never made it to the dumpster unless I took it myself. But I kept making excuses for her. She's adjusting to a new country. School is stressful. She misses home. I bent over backwards to accommodate her, even when it meant I was running on 3 hours of sleep and surviving on instant ramen because groceries were expensive, and she, of course, had expensive tastes. My phone rang, pulling me sharply from my thoughts. It was my boyfriend. I answered immediately, grateful for the distraction. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mary texted me, he said, without preamble. Are you okay? I laughed, but it came out bitter. Define okay, I mumbled. I'm coming over, he said. You don't have to. I'm already in my car. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, I heard his key in the lock. He'd had a key since before Karen moved in, though he'd barely used it during those nightmare months. He walked straight to me and pulled me into a hug. She really called asking for money, he asked into my hair. Money, housing, health insurance, the works, I mumbled against his chest. Apparently, I should be thrilled to raise Ken's baby. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes wide. The audacity, he said. That's one word for it. We moved to the couch, and he listened patiently as I recounted the whole infuriating conversation. His face darkened when I mentioned Karen's aunt harassing me. You should have called me immediately, he said, frowning. I handled it. Threatened to tell my stepfather. She's his tenant, so that shut her up real quick. He squeezed my hand. I know you can handle yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. His words hit harder than I expected. During those months with Karen, I'd felt completely alone, even with her in the next room. She'd made sure of that, always finding ways to chase him off when he tried to visit, always some emergency that required my immediate attention whenever we had plans. I should have kicked her out sooner, I said quietly. You were trying to help family. That's not a character flaw. It is when the family is trying to pimp you out to their creepy boyfriend, I shot back. He winced. Fair point. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. The cat jumped onto my lap, purring loudly, reminding me that at least someone in this apartment had their priorities straight. You know what the worst part is? I said eventually. She genuinely doesn't think she did anything wrong. In her mind, I'm the villain for not letting Ken assault me. That's sociopathic, he observed. That's Karen, I agreed, a chilling thought. My phone buzzed. Mary again. This time I read it. Karen left. Took some of my stuff with her. I'm changing my locks. I showed him the message. He shook his head. Where's she going to go? He asked. Not my problem, I said, and I truly meant it. The girl who'd first arrived from home, nervous and excited about starting university, that girl was gone. Maybe she'd never really existed. Maybe I just projected what I wanted to see onto someone who was always calculating what they could take from me. The next few days passed in a blur of normalcy that felt almost foreign. I went to work, came home to a peaceful apartment. I cooked dinner without someone complaining about the smell. I watched TV without someone demanding the remote. My boyfriend stayed over twice, something that had been impossible when Karen was here. She'd always found ways to make him uncomfortable, walking around in towels, making inappropriate comments, sitting too close to him on the couch. On the fourth day, my stepfather called. Just wanted to check in, he said, his voice warm. Heard there was some family drama. Karen's pregnant and homeless, I said bluntly. Her aunt thinks I should take her in. And what do you think? He asked. I think Ken should have thought about that before kicking her out. He chuckled. That's my girl. You know, your mom would be proud of how you're handling this. My throat tightened. Mom had passed 5 years ago, before my sisters came to the country. She'd never met them, but she'd always taught me to stand up for myself. Thanks, I managed. If anyone gives you trouble, you let me know. Family or not, nobody gets to harass my daughter. After we hung up, I sat with those words. My stepfather had never legally adopted me, but he'd been more of a father than my biological one ever was. He certainly never tried to guilt me into housing someone who'd attempted to traffic me. The weekend arrived with no more contact from Karen or her flying monkeys. I deep cleaned the apartment, erasing the last traces of her presence. The second bedroom that had been hers became my office again. I set up my desk by the window and hung the pictures she'd made me take down because they were depressing. Sunday afternoon, I was grocery shopping when I ran into one of Ken's former roommates. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me. Hey, he said awkwardly. Heard about everything? Yeah. For what it's worth, we tried to warn her about him. Dude's a predator. Had a whole list of girls he wanted to collect. My stomach turned. A list? Yeah, different ethnicities. It was sick. We kicked him out last year because of it. And Karen knew? I asked, dread forming a knot in my gut. He shrugged. She was there when we confronted him. Thought it was funny. Said she could help him with some of them. I abandoned my shopping cart right there and went home. The information shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Somehow, I'd still been clinging to the idea that Karen had been manipulated, that Ken had convinced her to go along with his sick fantasy. But no, she'd been an enthusiastic participant. That night, I called Mary. "How are you holding up?" I asked. "Better now that I changed the locks," she replied. She took my jewelry box and some electronics. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I knew what I was getting into when I let her stay. Just didn't think she'd steal from me in 1 week." "Where did she go?" "No idea. Don't care. I'm moving Thursday anyway. Good luck with the move." "Thanks. And hey, don't let anyone make you feel guilty about this." She made her bed. After we hung up, I made myself dinner and settled in with a movie. Halfway through, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Karen's sister?" A woman's voice, professional and cold. "Who's asking?" "This is Riverside Hospital. We have a patient here who listed you as her emergency contact." My heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's stable, but she's requesting someone come sign her discharge papers. She says she has nowhere to go." I closed my eyes. Even now, even after everything, she was trying to manipulate me. "She has an aunt," I said, my voice tight. "I can give you her number. The patient specifically asked for you." "The patient tried to sex traffic me to her boyfriend," I said, the words burning my throat. "I have a restraining order against him and want nothing to do with her. Please don't call this number again." I hung up before the woman could respond. My hands were shaking again, but this time with pure, hot anger. The audacity of listing me as an emergency contact after everything she'd done. The hospital didn't call back, but an hour later, Karen's aunt did, from a different number. "How dare you leave her at the hospital?" she screeched the moment I answered. "How dare you call me after I told you not to?" I responded calmly. Screenshot sent to my stepfather. "Enjoy finding a new place to live." I hung up and immediately texted my stepfather the screenshot. He responded within minutes, already drafting the eviction notice. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls from various unknown numbers. I didn't listen to the voicemails. Instead, I changed my phone number and sent the new one only to people I trusted. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. At work, I threw myself into projects I'd been putting off. My boss commented on my renewed energy, and I realized how much Karen's presence had been draining me, even after she left. The constant anxiety of waiting for the next manipulation attempt, the next guilt trip, the next crisis that would somehow become my responsibility. 2 weeks passed peacefully. Mary had moved successfully and sent pictures of her new apartment. My boyfriend and I fell back into our routine of regular date nights and lazy Sunday mornings. My pets were calmer, too, without the constant tension in the apartment. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my stepfather forwarded me an email. It was Karen's aunt, begging him not to evict her and throwing me under the bus in the process. According to her, I was a heartless monster who had corrupted Karen with my Western values and abandoned family in their time of need. "Your response," my stepfather had written. "Proceed with the eviction," I replied. That evening, as I cooked dinner for my boyfriend and myself, I thought about the concept of family. Growing up, I'd been taught that blood meant everything, that you stood by family no matter what. But nobody had ever explained what to do when family saw you as a resource to be exploited. "You're quiet," my boyfriend observed over dinner. "Just thinking about how different my life is now. 6 months ago, I was killing myself to support someone who was actively trying to hurt me. Now I'm at peace." He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "You deserve peace." "I'm starting to believe that," I said. And I was. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first without guilt. The cultural programming that said I should sacrifice everything for family was finally losing its grip. Karen had done me a favor in a way. She'd shown me exactly where the line was by crossing it so spectacularly. My phone buzzed. Mary, sending a news article. Local woman arrested for theft. Karen's mugshot stared back at me. She looked rough, her pregnancy barely showing beneath an oversized shirt. Apparently, she tried to steal from a shelter, Mary's follow-up text read. They're not pressing charges because of the pregnancy, but she's banned. I stared at the photo for a long moment, waiting to feel something. Sympathy, maybe, or vindication. But all I felt was tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of being expected to clean up messes I didn't make. I showed my boyfriend the article. He read it silently, then looked at me. How do you feel about this? Like, it's not my circus, I said, echoing my earlier thoughts. These are not my monkeys. He smiled. Good. That's good. We finished dinner and cleaned up together, domestic and peaceful. Later, curled up on the couch with my pets and my boyfriend, I thought about Karen one last time. Wherever she was, whatever happened to her, it was her choice. Just like trying to hand me over to Ken had been her choice. Just like stealing from Mary had been her choice. Just like listing me as an emergency contact after everything had been her choice. And cutting her off? That was my choice. One I'd never regret. The next morning brought a new day, a new start, and zero guilt. I'd finally learned that some bridges weren't just meant to be burned. They needed to be demolished, the ground salted, and a warning sign posted for future travelers. Karen had taught me that, and it might have been the only valuable thing she'd ever given me. I stared at my laptop screen, the morning sun casting long shadows across my desk. 3 months had passed since I'd changed my phone number, and life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. My work performance had improved so much that my boss mentioned a potential promotion during our last meeting. The second bedroom remained my sanctuary, filled with plants and books instead of Karen's entitled presence. The doorbell rang, interrupting my morning coffee routine. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, holding a clipboard, official-looking but not threatening. I opened the door cautiously. "Are you related to Karen?" she asked, consulting her paperwork. My stomach dropped. "Why?" "I'm from Child Protective Services. We're conducting a welfare check regarding her pregnancy. She listed you as next of kin." I gripped the doorframe. "I haven't spoken to her in months. We're estranged." The woman nodded, making notes. "She's currently staying at a women's shelter, but there are concerns about her ability to care for the child once it's born. We're exploring family placement options." "I'm not an option," I said firmly. She handed me a card. "I understand. If you change your mind or have information that might help, please call." After she left, I slumped against the closed door. Even from a distance, Karen was trying to pull me back into her chaos. I texted my boyfriend about the visit, and he called immediately. "They can't force you to take the baby," he assured me. "I know," I replied, "but she's still trying to make me responsible for her choices." That afternoon at work, I couldn't concentrate. My coworker, Nicholas, noticed my distraction during our team meeting. "Everything all right?" he asked afterward. I gave him a brief overview. Nicholas had been through something similar with his brother years ago. "The guilt is the hardest part," he said. "But enabling her won't help the baby. It'll just teach her that there are no consequences." He was right. But knowing that didn't make it easier. That evening, I found myself researching women's shelters in the area, trying to figure out where Karen might be staying. Not to contact her, but to understand what resources she had available. Most shelters offered parenting classes, job training, and assistance with housing applications. She had options if she chose to use them. My stepfather called that night with an update. The eviction went through. Karen's aunt has 30 days to vacate. "Any pushback?" I asked. She tried to claim discrimination, but I had documentation of all her lease violations. My lawyer shut that down quickly. "Thanks for handling it." "Family protects family," he said simply. "Real family anyway." The distinction hit home. Real family didn't try to sell you to their boyfriend. Real family didn't steal from you or manipulate you into enabling their poor choices. 2 days later, I was grocery shopping when I spotted a familiar figure near the produce section. My blood ran cold. Ken. Examining apples, like he had any right to exist in my space. I immediately turned to leave, but he'd already seen me. Well, he called out, that slimy smile spreading across his face. I pulled out my phone, ready to call 911. "You're violating the restraining order," I said, my voice dangerously calm. Relax. I'm shopping. Can't help it if we shop at the same store. The order says 500 feet. You're about 490 feet too close. He laughed, but moved away. Karen says, hi, by the way. Shame about the baby. Could have been yours to raise if you'd been more accommodating. My skin crawled. I abandoned my cart and left immediately, calling the police from my car. They took my report seriously, but since he'd technically left when asked, there wasn't much they could do beyond documenting the incident. That night, I installed a security camera at my front door and upgraded my locks. My boyfriend helped, not saying much, but understanding the fear that Ken's appearance had triggered. We ordered takeout and ate in silence until I finally spoke. He knew where I shop. You can't live in fear, he said gently. But we can be smart about safety. What if he shows up here? Then we call the police immediately. The restraining order is still valid. I nodded, but sleep didn't come easily that night. Every sound made me jump. The cat seemed to sense my anxiety, curling up closer than usual. The next morning brought a text from Mary on her new number. Heads up, Karen's been calling our relatives, trying to get your new contact info. So far, everyone's refused. I thanked her for the warning and spent my lunch break calling the relatives I trusted, making sure they understood the situation. Most were supportive, but my cousin Catherine surprised me. Maybe you should at least hear her out, Catherine suggested. She's pregnant and alone. She tried to traffic me to her boyfriend. I reminded her, my patience wearing thin. I know, but people change, especially when they're about to become mothers. I ended the call, frustrated. Catherine had always been naive about people's capacity for change. She'd been married 3 times to men who promised to stop drinking, stop cheating, stop gambling. Some people didn't want to change. They just wanted to avoid consequences. That weekend, my boyfriend and I went hiking to clear our heads. The trail was peaceful, autumn leaves crunching under our feet. We'd made it halfway up when my phone buzzed with an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line made my blood run cold. You can't hide forever. The message was from Ken, sent through what was obviously a throwaway email account. He detailed how he'd been watching me, knew my routines, my work schedule. He mentioned seeing me with my boyfriend. Described what I'd worn to work 3 days ago. The email ended with a chilling threat. Karen needs her family. You'll see that soon enough. My boyfriend read it over my shoulder, his face darkening. We're going to the police now. The hike abandoned, we drove straight to the police station. The officer who took our report was sympathetic, but honest about the limitations. Cyber threats are hard to prosecute, especially from anonymous accounts, she explained. But this, combined with the grocery store incident, strengthens your case. We will increase patrols around your apartment and workplace. It felt like too little, but it was something. We spent the rest of the weekend reinforcing security measures. My boyfriend insisted on staying over every night, and I didn't argue. The security camera had already paid for itself, giving me peace of mind when checking who was at the door. Monday morning, my boss called me into her office. My stomach sank, wondering if Ken had somehow contacted my workplace. I wanted to discuss the promotion we mentioned, she said, and I exhaled in relief. The position would involve relocating to our Phoenix office, better salary, leadership role. But I understand if the timing isn't right. Phoenix. Thousands of miles from Ken, from Karen, from this entire mess. When would I need to decide? Take a week to think it over. It's a big decision. I left her office with my mind racing. A fresh start sounded perfect, but running away felt like letting them win. Plus, my boyfriend's job was here. My stepfather was here. My life was here. That evening, I discussed it with my boyfriend over dinner. He listened thoughtfully before responding. I don't want you to leave, he said carefully. But I also want you to be safe and happy. If Phoenix offers that, you'd be okay with long distance? I asked, my voice small. I'd hate it, he admitted. But I'd rather have you safe and far away than here and constantly looking over your shoulder. His support made the decision harder. I'd finally found stability and peace, only to have it threatened again by people who should have been out of my life. The next day, a coworker mentioned seeing a pregnant woman asking about me in the lobby. Security had turned her away, but the description matched Karen. She was escalating, getting bolder. The shelter must have been pressuring her to secure stable housing before the baby arrived. I worked late that night, partly to avoid going home at my usual time, and partly because focus came easier when I was solving work problems instead of personal ones. Nicholas stayed late, too, and we grabbed coffee from the break room. "Heard you might be heading to Phoenix," he said. News traveled fast in our office. "Considering it. For what it's worth, I think you should go. Sometimes a clean break is the only way to really heal." But that means they win. They drove me out of my own life. "No," he said firmly. "Choosing your peace over their drama means you win. There's no prize for suffering through proximity to toxic people." His words stuck with me as I finally headed home. The parking garage felt more ominous than usual, shadows seeming to hide threats, but I made it to my car without incident, checking the back seat before getting in, a new paranoid habit I'd developed. At home, I found a package at my door with no return address. My blood ran cold. I called my boyfriend before touching it. "Don't open it," he said immediately. "I'm on my way." While waiting, I used a stick to carefully turn the package over. Through the thin paper, I could make out what looked like baby clothes. My boyfriend arrived as I was debating whether to call the police. "It's probably from Karen," I said. "Some guilt trip about the baby. Still concerning that she knows your address." We opened it together, carefully, outside, ready to run if necessary. Inside were indeed baby clothes, along with ultrasound photos and a note in Karen's handwriting: "Your nephew deserves better than homelessness. Don't punish him for my mistakes." Nephew. So, it was a boy. I stared at the grainy ultrasound image, waiting to feel something. Connection, maybe, or guilt. But all I felt was anger at the manipulation. "She's good," my boyfriend said bitterly, using the baby as a weapon. I gathered everything back into the package. "This goes to the police tomorrow. She shouldn't know my address." That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the building made me wonder if Ken or Karen had found a way inside. By morning, I'd made my decision about Phoenix. I couldn't live like this, constantly afraid in my own home. I told my boss I'd take the position. She was thrilled, immediately starting paperwork for the transition. The move would happen in 6 weeks, giving me time to wrap up projects and find housing. Telling my boyfriend was harder. He took it well, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. 6 weeks, he said quietly. "We'll make them count, and then we'll figure out the distance. Maybe you could transfer too eventually." "Maybe," he agreed. But we both knew his job wasn't as portable as mine. My stepfather was supportive when I told him, though he admitted he'd miss having me nearby. "Your safety comes first," he said. "And Phoenix has great hiking. You'll love it." Mary was excited for me when I called her with the news. Fresh start, new city. No toxic family drama. Sounds perfect. "I feel like I'm running away," I admitted. "You're not running from anything," she countered. "You're running towards something better. There's a difference." The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparations. I started packing, researching Phoenix neighborhoods, and training my replacement at work. The police hadn't been able to trace the package or email definitively to Ken or Karen, but they'd added both incidents to my file. Then, 3 weeks before my move, everything escalated dramatically. I was leaving work when I noticed Ken's car in the parking garage. He wasn't in it, but the message was clear. He knew where I worked when I left, where I parked. I called security immediately, and they searched the garage with me until we found him loitering near the stairwell. "I'm not violating anything," he said smugly when confronted. "This is a public garage. It's a private garage for employees only," the security guard corrected. "You need to leave, or we'll call the police." Ken left, but not before making eye contact with me and mouthing "soon." I was shaking as security escorted me to my car. They promised to ban him from the property and alert all shifts to watch for him. But I knew he'd accomplished his goal, reminding me that he could get to me whenever he wanted. That night, my boyfriend and I started looking into breaking my lease early. The landlord was understanding given the circumstances, especially with the police reports as documentation. He agreed to let me out with 30 days' notice, which aligned perfectly with my Phoenix timeline. The next morning, I woke to find my car tires slashed. Nothing else was damaged. No note left behind. But the message was clear. The security camera footage from the parking area was too grainy to make out faces, but I knew who was responsible. While waiting for the tow truck, I called in sick to work. My boss was understanding. She knew about the situation and had even offered to let me work from home for my remaining weeks. I accepted gratefully. My boyfriend took the day off to help me deal with insurance and police reports. The officers were frustrated by the lack of concrete evidence linking the vandalism to Ken or Karen, but they added it to the growing file. You might want to consider staying somewhere else until you move, one officer suggested. Do you have family or friends you could stay with? My stepfather immediately offered his guest room when I called. I packed essentials that afternoon, my boyfriend helping me carry boxes to his car. It felt like defeat, being driven from my own apartment, but safety had to come first. That evening, settled into my stepfather's guest room, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Please don't hang up, Karen's voice pleaded. I know you hate me, but I need help. How did you get this number? I asked, instantly annoyed. Catherine gave it to me. She said you were moving away, and I can't let you leave without trying to make things right. I almost laughed at the audacity. Make things right? You tried to sell me to your boyfriend. I know. I was stupid and wrong, and I'm sorry, but my baby, your nephew, he doesn't deserve to suffer for my mistakes. Then maybe you should have thought about that before making those mistakes. Please, she sobbed. The shelter is kicking me out next week. I have nowhere to go. No job, no money, nothing. Ken abandoned me, and I deserve it, but the baby doesn't. What exactly do you want from me? Just a place to stay until I get on my feet. I'll get a job, save money, find my own place. I swear I've changed. Like you swore Ken wouldn't come to my apartment? Like you swore you'd help with chores? Like you swore a lot of things. This is different. I'm going to be a mother and that's your responsibility, not mine. Don't contact me again. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. Then I called Catherine. How dare you give her my number? I said, without preamble. She's desperate, Catherine defended. And pregnant. I thought you thought wrong. If you contact me again about Karen, we're done. Family or not. I hung up on her too. My stepfather, who'd heard my end of both conversations, brought me tea. You did the right thing, he said quietly. Then why do I feel so guilty? Because you're a good person. But being good doesn't mean being a doormat. The next 2 weeks passed without major incident. I worked from my stepfather's house, finished packing my apartment with my boyfriend's help, and finalized arrangements for Phoenix. My company was covering moving expenses and temporary housing, which removed a lot of stress. Then 1 week before my scheduled move, Mary called with news that changed everything. Karen had the baby, she said. Premature, but he's okay. She's at county hospital. I sat down heavily. How premature? 6 weeks. He's in the NICU, and she listed you as the person to contact about adoption. My world tilted. What? The social worker called me when they couldn't reach you. Apparently, Karen wants to sign away her rights. Says she can't care for him, but she wants family to take him. Specifically you. I couldn't breathe. A baby. A premature baby who needed care. Who hadn't asked for any of this. Who was innocent in all this mess. I can't, I whispered. I'm moving in a week. I have a new job. I can't take a baby. I know, Mary said gently. I told the social worker as much, but I thought you should know. The baby, he's really small and alone. After we hung up, I sat in my stepfather's garden, trying to process this development. My boyfriend found me there an hour later, tears streaming down my face. She had the baby, I told him. Wants me to adopt him. He pulled me into his arms. What do you want to do? I don't know. He's innocent in all this, but taking him means Karen wins. She gets to walk away from her responsibilities again while I clean up her mess. Or it means a baby gets a loving home instead of entering the system. I pulled back to look at him. You think I should consider it? I think you should make the decision that you can live with, not based on Karen or Ken or anyone else. Based on what you want. But what I wanted was to move to Phoenix, start fresh, build a life free from this drama. A baby would change everything. My job, my relationship, my entire future. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the baby in the NICU. Alone, fighting for life with a mother who wanted to give him away and a father who'd abandoned him before birth. By morning, I'd made a decision I knew I might regret. I want to see him, I told my stepfather over breakfast. Not to adopt, just to see him. He nodded. I'll drive you. The NICU was overwhelming. Machines beeping, tiny babies in incubators, exhausted parents keeping vigil. The social worker met us at the entrance, a kind woman named Catherine, who'd been assigned to the case. Karen is still in recovery, she explained. She had complications during delivery, but she's been clear about her wishes. I'm not here to adopt, I said firmly. I just needed to see him. She led us to an incubator in the corner. The baby inside was impossibly small, covered in tubes and wires, but breathing on his own. His tiny fists were clenched. Fighting already. He's a fighter, the nurse said softly. Born at 34 weeks, but doing better than expected. He'll need a few weeks here, but prognosis is good. I stared at this tiny human, my nephew, and felt my carefully constructed walls begin to crack. He hadn't asked for a mother who would trade her sister for a boyfriend's fantasy. He hadn't asked for a father who collected women like trophies. He was just a baby who needed someone to fight for him the way he was fighting for life. What happens if no family takes him? I asked Catherine. Foster care initially, then hopefully adoption. But premature babies with potential health issues can be harder to place. My stepfather squeezed my shoulder. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. I spent another hour watching the baby, trying to reconcile my anger at Karen with my growing concern for this innocent child. When we left, I was more confused than ever. That evening, my boyfriend listened as I talked through my feelings, circular and contradictory as they were. Phoenix is still an option, he reminded me. The job will wait if you need time to figure this out. But what if I take him and resent him? What if I can't love him because of what Karen did? What if you can, he countered softly. What if loving him helps you heal from what she did? I didn't have answers. The next morning, I called my boss and explained the situation. She was incredibly understanding, offering to delay my start date by a month if needed. Family comes first, she said. Even complicated family. But was this baby my family? Biology said yes, but Karen had proven that blood meant nothing when it came to loyalty and love. Still, the baby hadn't betrayed me. He was just collateral damage in his parents' selfishness. I returned to the hospital the next day, alone this time. Karen was awake and asking for me, according to Catherine. Against my better judgment, I agreed to see her. She looked terrible, pale, thin, hooked to IVs. For a moment, I saw the scared young woman who'd arrived from home 2 years ago. Then she opened her mouth and ruined it. You came, she said, like she'd won something. I came to see the baby, not you. He needs you. I named him after Grandpa, hoping that might. Don't, I cut her off. Don't try to manipulate me with sentiment. Why didn't you tell anyone you were in premature labor? I didn't know. I thought it was just cramps. Then my water broke and the shelter called an ambulance. And Ken's gone. Blocked my number months ago. Probably found some other girl to add to his collection. The casual way she said it made my skin crawl. She'd known about his collection and still tried to add me to it. I'm not taking your baby, I said firmly. You need to figure this out yourself. I can't, she cried. I have nothing. No job, no home, no money. The shelter won't take me back with a baby. What am I supposed to do? What every other single mother does. Find resources, get help, take responsibility. Easy for you to say. You have everything. I have everything because I worked for it. Multiple jobs, no sleep, sacrificing constantly. And you tried to destroy it all for your boyfriend's sick fantasy. She started crying again, but I felt nothing. The tears were just another manipulation tactic. Please, she begged. If not for me, for him. He deserves better than foster care. He deserved better than you and Ken as parents. But here we are. I left without looking back, but her words haunted me. The baby did deserve better. The question was whether I could be that better option without losing myself in the process. 3 days before my scheduled move to Phoenix, I made my decision. I couldn't take the baby. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew I wasn't ready. The wounds from Karen's betrayal were too fresh. The resentment too strong. The baby deserved someone who could love him wholly, not someone who might see his mother's betrayal every time they looked at him. I met with Catherine to discuss alternatives. She assured me there were families waiting to adopt healthy infants, even premature ones. The baby would be placed in specialized foster care initially, but adoption prospects were good. "You're making a brave choice," she said. "Not everyone who could parent should parent." I signed papers formally declining custody and refusing any future contact about the adoption. It felt final in a way that hurt, but I knew it was right. My last day in town, I visited the NICU one final time. The baby was doing better, breathing without assistance, gaining weight. He looked peaceful, unaware of the drama surrounding his arrival. "I'm sorry," I whispered through the incubator. "But this is better for both of us." A nurse approached as I was leaving. "You're his aunt, right? Karen mentioned you." I nodded wearily. "She wanted me to tell you something. She said she understands why you can't take him, and she's sorry for everything." Too little, too late. But I appreciated the nurse passing along the message. That evening, my boyfriend and I had our last dinner at our favorite restaurant. We decided to try long distance, with plans for him to visit Phoenix in a month. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About the baby? No. I made the right choice for everyone involved." "And about Phoenix?" "None at all. I need this fresh start." My stepfather drove me to the airport the next morning. We'd said our goodbyes the night before, but he insisted on seeing me off properly. "I'm proud of you," he said at the departure gate, pulling me into a tight hug. "Your mom would be too. You've handled an impossible situation with grace." "I don't feel graceful," I confessed. "I feel like I'm running away." "Sometimes strategic retreat is the smartest option," he said, his eyes kind. "You're not running from anything. You're moving toward a better life." As my plane took off, I watched the city shrink below me. Somewhere down there, Karen was signing adoption papers. Ken was probably stalking his next victim. The baby was fighting his way to health. And I was finally free. The guilt would fade. I knew the what-ifs would quiet. In Phoenix, I could build a life untouched by their chaos. It wasn't the ending anyone would have chosen, but it was the one that let everyone move forward. My phone buzzed with a text from my boyfriend. "Just landed at your apartment. Already miss you. Can't wait to see your new place." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. No more sacrificing my peace for people who saw kindness as weakness. No more enabling destructive behavior in the name of family loyalty. As we flew toward Phoenix and my new beginning, I thought about the lessons Karen had inadvertently taught me. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes the best help you can give is refusing to help. And sometimes saving yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. The baby would find a family who could love him without reservation. Karen would either figure out her life or face the consequences of her choices. And I would build something new in the desert, far from the toxicity that had nearly consumed me. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was an honest one. And after everything, honesty felt like the greatest victory of all. The Phoenix heat hit me like a wall when I stepped out of the airport. My new company had arranged for a driver, and I settled into the air-conditioned car gratefully. The city sprawled endlessly before me, all desert and possibility. My temporary corporate housing was in a gated complex downtown, complete with security that actually checked IDs. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent the first week getting acclimated to my new office. The team was welcoming, professional, and blissfully unaware of my family drama. My boss introduced me around, and I threw myself into learning new systems and processes. The work was challenging in all the right ways, demanding my full attention and leaving no room for dwelling on what I'd left behind. My boyfriend visited the second weekend, and we explored the city together, hiking trails that didn't remind me of Ken's threats, dining at restaurants where I didn't have to worry about running into him. We found a quiet spot overlooking the valley, and he pulled out his laptop. "I've been looking into transfers," he said, showing me job listings. "My company has a Phoenix branch." The possibility of having him here permanently made everything feel more real, more permanent. We spent the afternoon planning, researching neighborhoods, discussing timelines. For the first time in months, I was making plans that didn't revolve around avoiding someone else's chaos. Monday morning, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my personal phone rang. My stepfather's number. I answered immediately, worried something had happened. "Just wanted to let you know," he said. "Karen's aunt moved out yesterday. Left the place a mess, but nothing we can't handle." "Any drama?" I asked, bracing myself. She tried to claim I'd stolen her security deposit. I had photos of the damage she'd done. My lawyer handled it. After we hung up, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Even from across the country, I was still waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it didn't. Days turned into weeks, and life continued its forward momentum. I found a permanent apartment in a quiet neighborhood with a small yard for when I was ready to get another pet. The building had excellent security, which I appreciated more than I would have a year ago. My neighbors were friendly, but respectful of boundaries, exactly what I needed. 3 weeks into my new life, Mary texted me. "Thought you should know the baby was placed with a family. Closed adoption. Karen signed away all rights." I stared at the message for a long time. Somewhere, a family was getting the child they dreamed of. Somewhere, that tiny fighter was getting the stable home he deserved. And somewhere, Karen was facing the consequences of her choices without me to cushion the fall. "Good," I finally replied. "He deserves a fresh start, too." Work continued to challenge and fulfill me in equal measure. I was leading a major project, coordinating with teams across multiple time zones. The long hours didn't bother me. I was building something meaningful, not just surviving. My boss mentioned that my fresh perspective was exactly what the Phoenix office needed. My boyfriend visited every other weekend, and we fell into a routine: airport pickups, exploring new hiking trails, trying different restaurants. He submitted his transfer request, and we started seriously looking at apartments together. The future felt tangible in a way it hadn't in years. Then, 6 weeks after my move, I got an email that made my blood run cold. Not from Ken this time, but from Catherine. The subject line read, "You need to know this." Against my better judgment, I opened it. Catherine had attached screenshots of social media posts. Ken, bragging about his newest conquest, a young woman who looked barely out of college. The posts were full of the same predatory language he'd used about me, but what made my stomach turn was the comment from Karen underneath, "Happy to help with this one, too." I forwarded everything to the police department back home, along with a brief explanation. They might not be able to do anything, but at least there would be a record. Then I blocked Catherine's email. I had told her we were done if she contacted me about Karen again, and I meant it. That evening, I called Nicholas from my old office. We'd stayed in touch, and he'd become a good sounding board. "She's doing it again," I told him, fuming about Karen finding girls for Ken. "Some people never learn," he said. "But that's not your responsibility anymore." "I know. I just feel bad for whoever that girl is." "You can't save everyone," he pointed out gently. "You couldn't even save Karen from herself." He was right. I'd tried to help Karen, and she tried to sell me to her boyfriend. Some people didn't want to be saved. They wanted enablers. My boyfriend arrived that weekend with news. "Transfer approved. I start in Phoenix next month." We celebrated with dinner at a rooftop restaurant, the city lights spreading out below us. For the first time since everything started with Karen, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. We started apartment hunting in earnest, finding a place that felt like home to both of us. 2 months into my Phoenix life, I was grocery shopping when my phone rang. Unknown local number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Karen's sister?" The voice was young, scared. My heart sank. "Who is this?" "My name is Rebecca. I know Ken. Karen gave him my number. Said you could help me." The audacity took my breath away. Even now, even after everything, Karen was still trying to drag me into her mess. But this girl sounded terrified. "Are you safe right now?" I asked. "Yes, I'm at home, but Ken won't leave me alone. He keeps showing up places, sending messages." Karen said it was normal, but it's not normal. "Do you have somewhere safe you can stay?" "My parents live here, but Karen said I was overreacting. That Ken just really liked me." I gave her the number for the local police and a women's shelter. file a report, document everything, and stay away from both Ken and Karen. But Karen said Karen tried to traffic me to Ken 2 years ago. She's not your friend. She's his accomplice. The girl gasped. I spent another 10 minutes giving her resources and advice before hanging up. Then I called the police back home and reported the incident, giving them Rebecca's information. They thanked me for the intel and promised to follow up. That night, I told my boyfriend about the call. He held me while I processed the anger and frustration. You helped that girl, he said. That's something. But how many others are there? How many girls is Karen feeding to him? That's for the police to handle now. You did your part. The next week, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Rebecca. Thank you. Police are investigating. I'm safe. I didn't reply, but I saved the message. Proof that speaking up mattered, even from a distance. My boyfriend moved to Phoenix the following month. We settled into our new apartment, mixing our belongings and creating something that was ours. I adopted a rescue dog who'd clearly never known stability before. We understood each other immediately. Work continued to thrive. I was promoted to senior project manager with a team of my own. The validation of being valued for my skills rather than what I could provide felt revolutionary. My team respected me. My boss trusted my judgment, and I was building a career on my own terms. 3 months after the Rebecca incident, Mary called with an update. Police arrested Ken. Multiple victims came forward after that girl you helped filed charges. And Karen, she's charged as an accomplice. She's been helping him for years. Apparently, they found messages going back to before she even moved in with you. The revelation shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. All those months of supporting her, and she'd been planning to hand me over to Ken from the beginning. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. The baby's okay though, Mary continued, knowing I needed to hear it. His adoptive family sent a letter through the agency. He's thriving. At least something good had come from all this mess. That tiny fighter had gotten his chance at a normal life, away from the toxicity of his biological parents. My stepfather visited for Thanksgiving. We hiked the desert trails, and he marveled at how different the landscape was from home. Over dinner, he updated me on the family dynamics. Karen's mother finally admitted she knew something was off with Ken, he said. Apparently, Karen had made comments before about sharing you. Her mother thought it was a joke, and she never thought to warn me. Denial is powerful. But she's in therapy now, trying to understand how she missed the signs. I appreciated that Karen's mother was taking responsibility, even if it was too late to change anything. At least she wasn't enabling her daughter anymore. My boyfriend and I spent Christmas exploring the Grand Canyon. Standing at the rim, looking out at that vast expanse, I felt the last of my guilt fall away. I'd made the right choice for me, for the baby, for everyone. Some chasms were too wide to bridge, and that was okay. New Year's Eve, we hosted a small party with my Phoenix colleagues. As midnight approached, Nicholas called from back home. Wanted to check in, he said. How's the desert treating you? Like home, I said, and I meant it. Good, he replied. Oh, and that promotion I mentioned? I got it. Thanks for the recommendation. I'd written him a glowing reference before leaving. It felt good to help someone who'd actually supported me. That's what real family did. Lifted each other up instead of trying to sell each other out. January brought news through Mary that Karen had been sentenced to 2 years in prison. Ken got 5. Their victims were getting justice, finally. The girl Rebecca sent me a thank you card saying she was starting college and majoring in criminal justice, inspired by her experience to help others. My life in Phoenix settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable. Work challenges that energized rather than drained me. A relationship built on mutual respect rather than crisis management. Friendships based on shared interests rather than trauma bonding. I joined a hiking group, started volunteering at an animal shelter. I built a life that was truly mine. 6 months after moving, I was promoted again. The position came with more responsibility, but also more autonomy. I was creating policies, mentoring junior staff, making decisions that mattered. My boss joked that stealing me from the home office was the best decision she'd made. My boyfriend proposed on a sunrise hike, the desert painted in shades of gold and pink. I said yes without hesitation. We planned a small wedding, just close friends and the family members who'd supported us. My stepfather walked me down the aisle, and Mary stood as my witness. The family we'd chosen, rather than the one biology had assigned. Karen tried to send a letter from prison. I recognized her handwriting and returned it unopened. Whatever she had to say, I didn't need to hear it. That chapter was closed. The book shelved permanently. The local news back home covered Ken's victim impact statements. 12 women came forward in total, spanning years. Karen had helped him target every single one. The prosecutor called it one of the most disturbing cases of female complicity in predatory behavior they'd seen. I felt sick knowing I'd narrowly escaped being another statistic. My therapist in Phoenix helped me process the lingering trauma. Not through endless talking, but through EMDR and somatic work that helped my body release what my mind had already understood. The hypervigilance faded. The need to check locks 3 times diminished. I stopped looking over my shoulder in grocery stores. A year after moving, I stood in my office, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. My team was celebrating successfully launching a project we'd worked on for months. My wedding ring caught the light as I raised my coffee mug in a toast. My phone buzzed with a text from my husband about dinner plans. This was what peace looked like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of choice. I'd chosen myself, chosen safety, chosen growth. The price had been high. Family relationships severed. Geographic distance from everything familiar. The weight of knowing a baby would grow up without knowing his biological family. But the reward was this: a life built on solid ground instead of shifting sand. That evening, as my husband and I walked our dog through our neighborhood, we passed a young woman who looked lost. She was checking her phone, clearly frustrated. The old me would have kept walking, but the Phoenix me stopped. "Need help finding something?" I asked. She looked up gratefully. "I'm trying to find the women's shelter. My GPS keeps sending me in circles." I recognized the look in her eyes. That combination of fear and determination I'd seen in my own mirror. I gave her directions and then impulsively handed her my business card. "If you need anything," I said, "sometimes it helps to talk to someone who's been through it." She thanked me and hurried off. My husband squeezed my hand as we continued our walk. Maybe I couldn't save everyone, but I could pay forward the help I'd received. That was how cycles broke. Not through grand gestures, but through small acts of solidarity. As we turned toward home, my phone buzzed. Mary, sending a photo from her own life, her new apartment, her promotion celebration, her own journey of setting boundaries and building something better. We both learned the hard way that family wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up, who respected your boundaries, who celebrated your growth instead of trying to exploit it. The desert sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in impossible colors. Tomorrow would bring new challenges at work, wedding planning decisions, the ordinary complexities of a life lived fully. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be. Not running from anything, but running toward everything I'd built. The girl I'd been 3 years ago, working multiple jobs to support an ungrateful sister, accepting crumbs of affection, believing sacrifice was love, she would be proud of who I'd become. And Karen, sitting in her prison cell, would have to live with the knowledge that her actions had freed me to become someone she could never manipulate again. My husband opened our front door, and our dog bounded inside. I followed, leaving the past where it belonged, behind me. Inside was warmth, safety, and a future I'd chosen for myself. The greatest revenge wasn't anger or retaliation. It was this: a life lived well, boundaries maintained, peace protected. The story that had started with sacrifice and betrayal ended with sovereignty and strength. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real one. Messy, imperfect, and entirely mine. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, even when it felt impossible? Or have you found yourself in a situation where you realize that blood is thicker than water doesn't always apply? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your experiences.